Welcome and thank you for taking the time to join us today. By way of introduction, I'm Ian Bevington. I'm Product Marketing Manager here at Tollring. My team does user experience testing on new software. We create all of the sales resources. We deliver the product training. We create the how-to videos. And we also manage all of the demo systems. So effectively, we turn our software into whole products. Last year at Fleet Week, we delivered more of a product overview. So this year we're going to do something a little bit different. Essentially, we're going to talk about the use cases, but I'm also going to talk about and highlight some of the changes that we've introduced this year and also are planning to introduce in the near future. Okay, for those of you who don't know Tollring, our background is in call analytics and recording. We're probably most famous for doing so on Cisco Broadworks. And we're proud to say that of our top 10 partners, all of them have been with us for over 10 years. More recently, we've been focusing on Microsoft Teams, and the products we'll be talking about today are all new products. They are built from scratch for Microsoft Teams by our in-house development team, and they've been developed over the last couple of years. We've focused very heavily on tight integration with Microsoft using the Graph API, and that's enabled them to be very easy to deploy, but also very easy to administer on an ongoing basis. They have an all-new user interface that is optimized for ease of use. And importantly, we're now building AI into these products, integrating it into the products to really help our customers derive more business value from artificial intelligence, effectively, out of the box with a minimum of fuss. So as we move through the use cases, I'm going to focus predominantly on customer experience and focus more on the capabilities that leverage our AI capabilities. But also I'll bring some other aspects into play, for example, employee experience and managing risk. So let's start by looking at the fundamentals and how we can use them to zero in on the conversations that matter. Out of the box, we capture and store every conversation. Of course, you can use recording policy to exclude conversations if you wish. Then we transcribe every conversation. We rate every conversation for sentiment, and we match it against pre-configured topics, so things like abusive language and complaints. And then beyond that, you can create your own topics containing keywords and phrases that are relevant to your business or your particular business application. So let's look at some examples of how we can use this ability to zero in on the conversations that matter. Our customers tell us that this is of significant value in industries where highly charged conversations take place. So here I'm talking about local government, social housing, healthcare. I'm sure you can think of some more. And yes, it's about delivering great service, because if we highlight these more challenging calls, then it helps us to develop tactics so that we minimize the number of escalations and deal with them in a more effective way. But also it's about protecting our organization and sometimes our staff too. So what happens here now is that managers can very quickly identify and review these high risk calls and then act if necessary. And they might do this they might do this twice a day or once a week or whatever's relevant to their business, of course. So this capability is also useful wherever adherence to policy is key. For example, in the insurance sector, where we might be checking that a mandatory compliance statement is included in every call. But more generally across all sectors, we might be looking to check that a greeting is carried out in a particular way, or the call is closed in a particular way. Or perhaps we've tasked our customer-facing team to inform customers about a new product or a promotion that's in play. And we want to check that they're doing that every single time. We even have a customer who uses this capability to renew GDPR permissions. So using topic analysis to list all of the calls that contain a GDPR permission renewal, and then using the recording as proof. So moving on, in addition to a formal call center, which are typically managed very well, a lot of organizations have other informal customer touch points around their business, and often have no clue how many of those calls go unanswered. And of course, that can lead to, if you like, hidden customer dissatisfaction. So what I would say is, if you're using calls, if you're routing calls to a Microsoft call queue, we'd always recommend using Microsoft's excellent request a callback feature, where callers can opt for a callback as an alternative to waiting in a queue during busy times. But then the question is, well, what happens if the call has gone beyond that point? Or if the call wasn't routed to a queue in the first place? And yes, we can display a list of missed calls, but what is far more valuable is a dynamic list of unreturned calls for action. So what I'm talking about here is the missed calls minus all of the customers that have called back in and subsequently been answered, and also, anywhere that an agent of ours has subsequently called a customer back having missed a call. Needless to say, we see this used a lot in retail and hospitality sectors, where they often struggle to provide face-to-face service, perhaps over a counter, and then also get the phone answered. And of course, in these industries, at best, a missed call is a lost sale. And at worst, it might be a customer that takes their business elsewhere for good. So this simple capability helps them to both minimize lost business, but also reduces customer dissatisfaction. Okay, so typically in businesses that record conversations, and these days most of our end users will, if they've got a customer-facing operation, they store thousands of hours of customer interaction with no way of unlocking all of that conversational intelligence. However, using AI, we can unlock the voice of the customer. So we might be looking to understand what our customers are saying about our products and services. We might be looking to understand if they're asking for any additional products and services. Or we might be looking to understand if we're getting too many complaints about a specific product or service. So by way of a little example, imagine we're an internet service provider, we're losing contracts to our competitors. What we can do here is we can create topics for each of our competitors. So we might include the competitor name and the name of their products and services and anything else that's relevant. So we make sure we capture every relevant conversation. And then we can also create a topic for the reasons. So it might be uptime, speed, price, service, I don't know, whatever. And then through filtering, we can analyze those cancellation conversations to understand that perhaps we're losing to competitor one because they're running an aggressive price promotion, and we're losing to competitor two because they're claiming to have faster broadband speeds. So that's a made-up example, but hopefully it gives you an idea of the kind of thing you can do with this technology and the way it can really make a difference to your business. So we've talked a little bit about the importance of getting timely insight to identify the issues before the business is impacted. Using dashboard views, we can display trend graphs and tables. So we can do this by time, by call scenario, by customer type, by individual agents or user groups. And then we can also drill down on the data to see the detail if we have a concern. And our customers tell us that this ability to show trend analysis over time is really useful to stay on top of customer experience. So also where call traffic is unpredictable, it's really important to have a real-time view of what's happening to enable you to manage customer interaction on the fly. So here I'm thinking about perhaps a utility company when outages occur. So using real-time tiles on the wallboard, we can see how many calls are in the queue, how many agents are on calls, how many agents are available, and we can even get a detailed list of calls in progress. I'll show you that in a little while. But what I wanted to talk about here really is, imagine now we're looking at these key, these KPIs and going, well, we've got too many calls in the queue, we haven't got enough agents logged in to get the calls answered. What are we going to do? And what we do here is we take the Microsoft Teams statuses, the ones that you know and love that you see in your Teams desktop, and we use that to present firstly a summary view and then the ability to drill down on the detail, and that enables us to identify who could be available and drafted in to get calls answered. And I think this is a real win for Microsoft Teams, because you can't really do that, I don't think, in any other environment. So just to take a little look at how this manifests itself in the product a moment. Last year we expanded the wallboard capabilities to include real-time wallboard tiles, so we can show any of the team's user statuses on the wallboard, and we can also show the number of calls in queue as a KPI tile. And then earlier this year we added the ability to add a calls in progress table. So this capability is only available when you deploy both call analytics and call recording together. And the reason for that is we take some real-time data from the call recording interface, pass it across to the call analytics application, and that enables us to compile this table where we can show the user status, the call direction, the duration, and the participants in the call. Okay, when it comes to managing risk, we know time can be really critical, and especially if your reputation is on the line. So here, what we can do is create notification rules around specific sentiments and topics to then trigger a notification whenever a match is detected. So this is really important in the financial services industry, where they might be wanting to monitor and highlight critical compliance and malpractice risks. So having set up one of these, well, any number of these notification rules, the compliance officer will then get a real-time alert. They can click on the alert to access the recording, the transcription. They can see a visual timeline of sentiment and topic matches. And so they can skip straight to the critical part of the conversation. And of course, that might be really important if it's a 20 or 30-minute conversation. You probably don't want to be listening to the whole thing before you take action. So looking at the way this is set up, what happens here is a user creates a notification, they give it a name, they then define the users on which they want it to act. So this might be a particular customer-facing team. They then define the topics and or the sentiments that they want to match against. If you wish, you can set an expiry date, or you can set it forever, and then the notification rule is created and active. And then whenever a match is detected, you get a notification. The notification appears both in the product portal and as an email notification. And from there, as we discussed earlier, you can access the recording and, if necessary, take some early action. Okay, coming this month, we're about to introduce auto attendant and call queue dashboard views. So let's imagine we're a service manager and we want to manage performance within our own domain. And typically that will mean the call queue and the users that are associated with that call queue. So we'll be interested in how many calls are being answered, how many are missed, how many are overflowing. We might be interested to set our own targets and view performance, and we might want that data, if you like, broken down by agent, so we can ensure that agents are contributing at the right level. So let's take a look at how this works in reality. For those of you who are familiar with the product, down the left-hand side, there are a number of KPI cards. So we've added a KPI card that gives you a count of auto attendance and call queues. So you click on that KPI, it opens up an auto attendant summary that gives you a summary of all of the auto attendants that are configured, and then you select one of those auto attendants and it pulls up this dashboard view of a specific auto attendant, where we can see how many calls have been presented, how many calls have been completed within the auto attendant, how many have transferred, and then on the right hand side there it gives you a breakdown of transfer destinations and how many calls have been transferred to each of those destinations. And then similarly with the call queue dashboard view, again we click on the KPI, we see a summary, we select one of the call queues, we pull up this view, this call queue dashboard view, and here we can see how many calls are waiting in the call queue. That's a real-time tile, the one in the top right-hand corner there. We can see how many calls have been presented, answered, and missed. We can see how many have overflowed out of our call queue. We can set targets to monitor performance, and that's independent of the targets that are set in the system, for example, for incoming numbers, where we're looking at the total time to answer and callback performance and that kind of thing. And we can also break down that data by individual agents so that we can check that they're contributing at the correct level. Okay, coming later this year, we're going to introduce the capability to do auto evaluation using AI. As most of you will be aware, in traditional call evaluation, evaluators have to listen to calls and score them manually. And the issue with this is it's incredibly resource intensive. So it means that it's really only practical to do this on a very small sample basis. It can potentially lack consistency, particularly if you're using more than one evaluator. And it takes too long, with a resulting delay in identifying any issues and taking action. So if you uncover an issue, it might already be having an impact on the business. By contrast, when we use AI, once it's set up, it requires no human resource. So we can evaluate every single conversation for a more complete view of customer experience. The process is always applied consistently, of course, and the results are available pretty much immediately, so we can act early. So let's take a look at how this might apply in a use case. And I think car dealerships in particular are really interesting because they're required to demonstrate that they're delivering customer experience in line with the manufacturer's brand. And if they can't prove this, it can lead to penalties or even termination of the franchise. So the way they manage it is they use standard processes and also standard training procedures, and that helps them to deliver a uniform experience across all staff, but also across all dealerships. And then the question is, how do you prove that you're delivering service to the required standard? So what we can do here is we can use call analytics to set targets and then show response times. We can use call recording to keep a record of every interaction, both to help us resolve disputes, but also to offer up proof if required. And then we can use auto evaluation to present a complete and also unbiased view of customer experience. And of course, more generally, we can take some of these principles across any telephone sales environment, inbound or outbound. And of course, in a telephone sales environment, we can do some other things too. So we can use AI to identify the habits of our most successful salespeople, and then replicate that across the rest of the team to improve sales productivity. We can use AI to highlight churn indicators in order to increase our customer retention. And we can automatically redact sensitive card payment using AI without any fuss. So some of you will be aware of manual pause and resume. We can do that in our product, but the risk is it's subject to human error. Or you can use auto pause and resume, but that's often quite complex to set up, and also, sometimes not as reliable as we might hope. So just taking a little look at auto evaluation a moment, and to understand how it's going to be applied, we use the same evaluation scorecards. We allocate a default scorecard to each user, and then we can set up some rules to allocate alternative scorecards. So you might say, if the sale is closed, apply scorecard 1, and if the sale is not closed, then apply scorecard 2. That's a simple example, but you get the idea. And then it just runs and provides, auto evaluation ratings in the same way as the manual process would. But importantly here, if we want to, we can still listen to the calls and make manual adjustments, so that option still exists. Okay, finally, let's talk a little bit about how you buy and deploy Analytics 365. So they are, as you'd expect, cloud-based applications that are very simple to deploy. They connect to the customer's Microsoft 365 tenants, simplify deployment. So we synchronize the organizational hierarchy as well as all the Microsoft groups. And that, of course, not only simplifies the initial deployment, but it also keeps the applications in sync for ongoing administration. Both of the products are monitored on a per user per month basis. We don't charge for access to the analytics or the administration, so you don't need to be licensed to do so. Call Analytics is presented as an option on SIPPIO Basic and SIPPIO Plus, and it's also included with SIPPIO Pro, making SIPPIO Pro the really good value for money option. When it comes to call recording, you can add it can be added to all 3 SIPPIO packages, either as a straightforward compliance recording solution or with the AI conversation analytics. So that concludes today's session. A big thank you to SIPPIO for inviting us to participate in Fleet Week again. And most of all, thank you to you for taking the time to join us. Thank you.